Breaking news out of Seoul, South Korea, where President Yoon Yeol has declared martial law. He made the announcement in a late-night television address, accusing the opposition of sympathizing with North Korea. The military has been blocking access to the National Assembly. Politicians from the president's own People Power Party have criticized the move, and the opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-Myung has called it unconstitutional. The declaration also puts the country's media and publishers under its control. It's the first time since 1979 that martial law has been declared in South Korea.
친애하는 국민 여러분.
I hereby declare an emergency martial law in order to defend the Free Republic of Korea from the threat of North Korean communist forces and to eradicate the shameless pro-North anti-state forces that are depriving our people of their freedom and happiness. This measure is necessary to safeguard our constitutional order of freedom. Through this martial law, I will rebuild and protect the Free Republic of Korea, which is falling into the depths of national ruin. I will decisively eliminate anti-state forces who've been wreaking havoc under the main culprits of our nation's downfall. This is an unavoidable step to protect the freedoms and safety of the people, as well as to ensure the nation's sustainability and security against the anti-state forces attempting to overthrow our system.
Let's get the latest now with Aljazeera's Eunice Kim, who's in Seoul for us. It's just gone past 1 a.m. in Seoul. Eunice, bring us up to speed with what's been happening first at the National Assembly.
Right, so we do have some developing news, Folly. We are hearing that at the National Assembly, those pictures you saw earlier of the Speaker of the National Assembly at the podium, that was lawmakers gathering to vote to request to put a halt on this declaration of the martial law. We are just now hearing that that motion has been passed by the lawmakers. The ball is now in the court then of the president in terms of whether he would honor that. And that is a big question mark because he also did not go through the usual steps prior to declaring martial law of working with the National Assembly to get that approved. So that will be something that a lot of people are watching. But now currently where we are now in this state of emergency that started at about 10:20 p.m. tonight when the president took to the airwaves to surprise even many of his own aides in making a case that the state of affairs, domestic affairs, is terrible because the National Assembly has thwarted many of his legislative moves, including efforts to impeach many of his ministers. So now, once again, saying that the National Assembly has acted and has approved this motion to lift the martial law declaration.
The question now being whether the president will accept this this vote by the members of parliament. Eunice, the emergency that's been declared, what does it mean effectively? What's going to happen? It's nighttime, of course, now, but what's going to happen come tomorrow morning? Will the markets open? Will people be able to go out?
Right. So we are not seeing any, restrictions on regular people. And certainly the president in his address did say that the government would try to minimize any impact on regular civilian life. So we should note that, people are still able to move about. We were able to quickly drive to the bureau here in Seoul to report on this news. But in terms of how restrictive, people who try to gather to protest, that will be something to watch because the martial law rules do prohibit political gatherings, including gatherings at the National Assembly. So what the National Assembly just did would not align with the rules of the martial law here in South Korea. But we did hear in terms of the financial world that the stock market may close tomorrow. They are weighing their decision tonight. And we're also hearing there are many senior aides and the Foreign Ministry as well holding late night emergency sessions in reaction to this development.
Yeah, and we do appreciate that it's late night, so difficult to gauge people's reactions now, Eunice. But how will South Koreans feel about this when people wake up tomorrow morning to hear this news? How will they react?
Right, I think people are already quite shocked in hearing this development. I myself have been getting a flurry of text messages. What is going on? Because this is so unexpected, this move. We have not had martial law declared in South Korea for decades. And so I think this is new territory that we have entered. How long this will last, whether, the president will honor this call from the National Assembly to stop, that will play a big part in the next steps for South Korea. But certainly right now, it's hard to tell. And as I had noted earlier, South Koreans are not shy about gathering and protesting what they feel is unjust. I mean, just a couple presidents ago, President Park Geun-hye made big news when she was successfully removed from office as a result of months and months of people coming out to the city center to call for that impeachment. So that's something that certainly I think the president's office would consider in their next steps and try not to anger more South Koreans and try to prevent his already low popularity from entering into perhaps potentially that impeachment route.
Right. And as you say, South Korea, protests are not something that South Koreans are not used to seeing and getting involved in. And this president himself has been involved in quite a number of controversies, one that included his own wife, right?
That's right. There's been, ever since the beginning of his term, really, when he became president about 2.5 years ago. South Korea has a single 5-year term. So he is about halfway into his term. But he came into office with the slimmest margin of less than 1%. So already he was entering into the seat with very low popularity, which he's not really been able to significantly recover from. And many of his non-supporters, I would have to say, have multiple times tried to make the issue of the legal challenges of his wife, the First Lady, Kim Gun-hee. And this, I think well known in the international world is perhaps one that involves a designer bag that she accepted from a pastor who had secretly filmed that exchange. But there are also other charges against her, including those involving real estate and investments. So this is something that the president has really tried to negotiate to be quieted down. But even his own leader of the ruling party, the People Power Party, Han Dong-hoon, who had been really his right-hand man when both of them were career prosecutors, he has not played along, so to speak, with the president's request to tone down on these allegations against the First Lady. And supporters of the president would say that the opposition have been using this politically to try to drive down the popularity of his leadership. And certainly his image abroad is a very popular one, as Kimberly noted earlier. There has been breakthroughs on the diplomatic front, thanks to cooperation with Joe Biden, as well as the former Japanese prime minister. But I think internally, domestically, he has struggled to really find allies that will coalesce around him. And with the leader of the ruling People Power Party now seemingly not willing to play on his team, he may have felt like he was cornered politically, and he does not want to, spend the second half of his presidential term being a lame duck president, especially at a time when there is so many eyes on this side of the world, thanks to North Korea and its growing alliance with Russia.
Thank you, Eunice, for the moment. Eunice Kim, our correspondent live there from Seoul. As we heard from Eunice, in the last few minutes, the South Korean parliament, the members of parliament who've managed to make it into the National Assembly have voted to block the martial law declaration that was made by the president a few hours ago. Let's speak to Youngshik Bong about these latest developments in South Korea. He's a visiting professor at Yonsei University and is an advisor for the Ministry of National Unification of South Korea's government, and is live from Seoul. Thank you very much for being with us. So in the last few minutes, the parliament has voted to block the martial law declaration by the president. What do you think is going to happen next now? What will the president's next move be after this vote by the parliament?
Well, the president may resist. The resolution passed at the parliament with a unanimous decision. 190 members of the parliament attended the emergency meeting, and all of them voted in favor of making a demand to the president's office to lift the martial law. It is up to the President Yoon, to lift the martial law or still resist the demand from the parliament. But the legitimacy does not stay with the president, because the situation, according to the Article 77 of the South Korean Constitution for martial law declaration, should be something very serious,
Right.
as serious as a civil war or actual war. But we don't have that situation. So this is not a game that president can win.
It looks like he didn't consult anyone. Well, he might have, but some members of his party were caught by surprise. What led him to make this decision, you think? And why now?
Why now? You and Eunice highlighted the scandals involving the First Lady, which has been his Achilles heel since his inauguration. I think he's seriously cornered, politically speaking. So this is a very desperate kind of Hail Mary for the president to turn around the table, but it's going to backfire. And now his impeachment is really in the card. Now citizens gather in front of the National Assembly building and in the streets of Seoul are shouting not just lifting the martial law declaration, but now they're shouting different slogan. President should be impeached.
So now people are calling for his impeachment. We've heard, of course, about the implications of this. What do you see the impact being on the tensions between the North and the South? Because the president, when declaring this martial law, accused the opposition of being sympathizers of Pyongyang, of North Korea, saying that he was trying to protect South Korea from communism and so on. What impact is this crisis? Because it looks like it's a crisis now that's unfolding in South Korea. Is this crisis likely to have on the tensions on the Korean Peninsula?
Not likely, because North Korea's hands are full. I mean, North Korea needs to take care of its own business, urgent business, with its involvement in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And the North Korean regime would be happy to see President Yeol go, because Yeol's hardline policy toward North Korea has been really hurting North Korean regime. So if President Yeol will be eliminated from the position of power, then there's no reason for North Korean regime for not being happy with the result.
So you don't see the North Koreans exploiting this crisis, because there seems to be concern from Washington that they might.
So what kind of exploitation can North Korean regime may try? Because this is a very unstable situation in South Korea, but North Korea's ability to manipulate this situation is quite limited.
Okay. In terms of the people, you've mentioned that there are now calls for the president's impeachment. Can he survive this, you think?
Well, it is highly unlikely because he brought this onto himself. Because since September this year, there has been rumors in the street in South Korea that in order to escape from a very difficult political situation with a lot of scandals, many of them involve his wife, President Yoon might scheme to declare martial law. And many conservative news media and party members who support President Yoon deny this rumor as groundless, but now he declared a martial law, so he has no supporter anymore. And it is very indicative that the Ministry of Education just made an announcement that tomorrow morning in South Korea, all the regular academic calendars will be, carried out without any change, even under the martial law declared.
Yeah, but what would have martial law meant, in fact? I mean, what sort of measures will we see still? Because it's not to say that the president will still not go ahead with this despite this vote in Parliament. What would it have meant? I mean, the country has been here in the past, but the last time, as we've been saying, was in the 1980s. What would martial law look like today if it was implemented?
Well, according to the martial law, then the head of the martial law committee the four-star army general is appointed to lead, would monopolize the not only the administration but also judiciary rights in the designated area under the influence of the martial law, and the rights to a peaceful assembly and freedom of expression would be greatly curtailed by the authority of the martial law committee.
You said a moment ago, Youngshik Bong, that the president has no supporters now after this declaration he made and after the vote we've seen in Parliament. But what about within the military? He did make some key appointments recently in the military. What sort of support does he have?
Well, I mean, that's a very good question. First of all, his right-hand man, Han Dong-un, the chairman of the ruling party, quickly made an announcement that this martial law declaration was unlawful, and he would be leading his party members to side with innocent citizens to request the martial law declaration to be rescinded immediately by the president. So the ruling party members already defected from the president's office. And you mentioned military possibly backing the president, but military is not really a unified organization. Maybe some members in the military may be supporting the decision made by President Yoon, but rest of the military know very well that when martial law was declared and there was a massacre of innocent citizens in 1980, 45 years ago when martial law was declared, all the collaborators later eventually paid a price as collaborators under the law. So they were severely prosecuted. So armed forces members know very well the consequences of their action. So although they may be superficially following the orders from the top, but at the heart of their hearts, they know the consequences of them being in the wrong place.
Youngshik Bong, thank you so much for your insight and for explaining the situation so clearly to us. Youngshik Bong, a visiting professor at Yonsei University, joining us there from Seoul.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.